Well, hello and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I guess, depending on where you are. Thanks for joining us today. We got off to a little bit of an interesting start this morning, so thanks for bearing with us. Hope you enjoyed the entertainment, but we have a great presentation for you today. We've assembled a lot of amazing presenters for you. We have a lot of moving parts today, so that might have been why we got off to a kind of a funny start, but I really do appreciate everybody being here. I'm looking at our list. I see a lot of names that were here yesterday, so thank you for those of you who joined us for our presentation yesterday. Really appreciate you making time and coming back to join us today. As I mentioned, we have assembled quite a brain trust of cybersecurity experts today, so I think we're in for a great presentation. Before we get going, I just wanted to cover off on a couple of housekeeping issues. First of all, so Sabrina, if we can just move ahead to the next slide. I wanted to review our agenda real quick. We're going to introduce quickly our presenters, but we'll talk in more depth about our presenters and their companies as we move through the webinar today. But we have fantastic presentations from industry leaders Cato Networks, CloudFlare, eSentire, and Ntirety. And our panel discussion is going to be moderated by Bill Franklin of Avant. And for those of you who were with us yesterday, you had the pleasure of hearing and seeing Bill's fantastic cybersecurity bootcamp presentation. So Bill is back today, and he is going to lead our presentation and lead our QA discussion.
Well, thank you, Julie.
Real quick, Bill, before I hand it off, I just wanted to cover off on a couple of little housekeeping things. Hopefully we're all familiar with the GoToWebinar control panel by now, and you should have seen some chats from me, and there's a spot in that panel for questions for Q&A. So I would invite all of our attendees today, all of our audience members, to write in your questions in that Q&A panel. I'm going to be moderating those throughout the presentation, and then at the end, I'm going to hand these off to Bill, and Bill's going to moderate our panel and get the answers that you're looking for from this team of experts. And then one more thing real quick. I know we have talked about an Amazon gift card giveaway. So again, thank you all for being here. The first 20 people who signed on today will qualify for this gift card, and we will be reaching out to those of you who, for the first 20 that signed on following this presentation. So thanks again for taking time to be here today. So with that, I want to turn it over to Bill Franklin, our host and QA moderator today. Bill Franklin, the Senior Director of Engineering for Avant and a cybersecurity expert. Those of you know that if you were here yesterday and saw his presentation. And if you weren't here yesterday, we do have that recorded, and we'll make that available to you as well. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to you, Bill.
Sure. Thanks. Sorry for jumping the gun a little bit there, Julie. And if anybody kind of caught a little bit, if they signed on early, kind of heard a little bit of music. I was wondering if that was my walk-up music, you know, like baseball games, they have that walk-up music. So that would have been kind of nice.
Yeah, that would have been, we should have done that actually. We shouldn't just plan.
I'm just a sucker for a good Led Zeppelin or some sort of AC/DC. I'm old school that way. But thanks again for joining today. Hopefully you found yesterday and the way Instant Info Systems and Avant, the way we tackle the cybersecurity market. Obviously, we're staying agnostic. We want to document early, you know, where you're at in your posture, what are your top challenges, where's the business going. There's a whole list of things, and that's why we have a methodology of asking a lot of questions at the beginning before we bring in any technology partner, service provider, anything out there. We're staying agnostic at the beginning. And I talked about NIST cybersecurity framework and some of the biggest challenges out there, which obviously I think we've all felt the pains of work from home, work from anywhere, different culture, Zoom, making people, you know, just helping them get operational because of that, whether they're using a home laptop or now they're corporate using, and having visibility and insight. And a little bit of it came down to understanding what is in your environment that might be there and you don't want it to be there. So reducing the dwell time, understanding where applications are residing, being able to get a lot of visibility, and honestly, those cybersecurity experts, they're not out there to go and hire all the time. So what we did is start assembling, and I was part of the team that assembled the 4 vendors today. And I want you to, as an audience member, kind of understand it was purposeful, okay? We didn't want to bring in just point solutions where, hey, here's your X product, the Oktas of the world, the single sign-on multi-factor authentications, the Ciscos of the world, the Fortinets, all of those you can Google, you can listen to them on any podcast and talk to anybody out there, that everybody will have an opinion. The people you're going to hear from today are solution providers. So CloudFlare and Cato are going to have a little bit similar feel to it, meaning they're both cloud-based. Okay, so there's no real legacy firewall. There's no legacy equipment. They're born and bred in the cloud, and CloudFlare has a great background if you kind of Google them and hear about the way they do reverse proxy and internet DNS, and they've just bred a amazing cyber architecture after that. Cato is an up-and-comer, but their history is not brand new, right? You'll hear from Mark, you'll hear from Dan. So they're technology partners, right? They don't solve for the human element, they solve for a lot of other things, which could include a human element if you get down to it, because their platforms are bred to enable your team to do more with less, if you will. And then we're going to get to 2 organizations that I'm having a lot of success with as well. eSentire, who, if you're not familiar with them, they've been in the industry over 20 years in the cybersecurity world, helped build the Gartner documentation around MDR. Remember, we talked about detect and respond yesterday. They helped write the book, literally, on that. Amazing company. And then the other one, Ntirety, which you might not be familiar with, but I've known them for a long time as more of an MSP, but as so many of the MSPs out there have grown up, every single organization that they were an MSP to said, can you also do cyber? Can you also help me with firewall and MDR and patchwork and all these other things? And so they hired a CISO quite a few years ago, Chris Riley, who's just taken that to the nth degree now. And now I feel comfortable with them as a actual MSSP, which is a managed security service provider. So I wanted to kind of bring this about because they're not your usual suspects out there. When you think about, the CrowdStrikes and the Darktraces and the Ciscos and the Fortinets and the Oktas a lot of people might even have those components in there. These are complementary and actually work with them. So what I'm going to do is kick it off. Our first presenter, hopefully I kind of teed up a little bit here with the different organizations, but I've known now Mark, actually, truth be told, we're going to be presenting in SoCal next week, right?
Yep.
I've known Mark several years now. He brings a wealth of knowledge, just his laid back attitude. I think that marries up with your California background, right? But in the cyber world for over 20 years. So I'd like to turn it over to Mark and kind of introduce us to you and what is Cato all about?
Thank you, Bill. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. So as Bill mentioned, thank you very much for having us today. My name is Mark Pay with Cato. I handle the West and as well as a lot of the growth we have happening in Western Canada and Latin America. So we've been in business now for a little over 6 years, but our heritage extends much deeper than that. We'll talk a little bit about that. But we had a crazy idea 6 years ago. Our co-founders, Shlomo Kramer and Gor Schatz, Shlomo, who's considered by some as the godfather of cybersecurity, he actually started Checkpoint back in the 90s. These 2 gentlemen also co-founded Imperva and a global DDoS mitigation company called Encapsula. So a lot of deep security heritage for decades. They built an operations and executive team around them, both based in Tel Aviv, which is where Cato is headquartered. And they had this wacky idea that networking and security should be less complicated. It should be all together, delivered as a single cloud platform. They believe that the technology foundation elements and the backbone to deliver it on should be together, so that instead of a telco providing a managed solution of some technology provider, but they actually don't own that product, Cato wanted to deliver its own product on its own backbone, and that was the idea, which has now become what Gartner calls SASE, or Secure Access Service Edge. So we've got about 900 enterprise customers already, with many more small and mid-market customers as well. 200% year-over-year growth for 4 years straight, which, if it sounds exhausting, it actually has been a fun, very, very, very fun journey. And we've now just achieved $1 billion valuation as of our last funding round in November. So there's definitely something that we're doing that's working well in almost every vertical market, from healthcare to manufacturing to technology, law firms, other professional services firms, technology providers, as well as even mid-market customers are starting to, the concept of what Cato's brought to market has started to appeal to a vast range of customers. Go to the next slide, Sabrina. Go ahead and build it out. So this notion of replacing premise-based, premise-rendered solutions with a cloud-delivered, subscription-based alternative of those same capabilities, this is certainly catching on. Sabrina, yeah, build it all the way out. Thank you. So if you have Exchange servers delivering Microsoft services locally and they go end of life, most normal customers wouldn't buy new ones. They would replace them with an Office 365 subscription set that delivers those same capabilities as a cloud-based platform, and you're able to completely free yourself of the infrastructure requirements there. Same thing with an old phone system. Your phone system goes end of life, that's the time to replace it with a UCaaS solution that delivers the same capabilities. It still requires the team members on your side or the skill set to be able to provision users, things like that, but just without the encumbrance of all the infrastructure related to it. And it's now normal to replace that premise-based stuff with cloud-delivered subscriptions of those same capabilities. Go to the next slide. In the networking and security world, though, if you're somebody like Trader Joe's, replacing your old Cisco routers with a shiny new SD-WAN or SD-WAN firewall combo box from Fortinet, Cisco, Meraki, etc., that's still normal. In the future, though, it won't be. And Cato allows for these elements to become there's a cloud-delivered subscription-based alternative to routers, firewalls, and SD-WAN appliances. And that's what Gartner calls true SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, which is how Cato is delivering it today, where it's a cloud-delivered subscription. Go to the next slide. Go ahead and build the whole thing out. So most customers have acquired these technologies one at a time based on things that are happening in your environment. You know, you're moving away from premise-based infrastructure toward cloud. Now you need SD-WAN because you need those, you want to take advantage of what cloud has to offer in terms of agility and elasticity and cost scalability. But if you move to the cloud, now you need to accelerate those applications, you need to secure them. If you use a global outsourcer for manufacturing, or if you start using different global elements or users, you have locations in other parts of the world, now you have to get all these different solutions to address work from home, and you wind up with this pantheon of different solutions that you have to cobble together and wield yourself, or have a telco do it at great cost and expense. Go to the next slide. What Cato has done, and Gartner's vision now for the entire industry, is that all of these functions from a networking perspective and security should be all together, delivered as a single cohesive cloud service. What this is going to do to the market is it's going to shift all these products and convert them into features. So in the same way that call recording used to be a product, and now it's just a feature alongside voicemail and other features in a unified communications as a service solution, UCaaS, in the future, SASE will incorporate all of these products into just feature sets, and we'll see new features added on. In the same way, if something new were needed in the collaboration space, Microsoft Teams would have a version of it, RingCentral would have a version of it. We're going to see that same type of innovation cycle happen in the networking and security world using this new model of SASE as a converged cloud-delivered service. So think of Cato as a marriage of those two ideas of SD-WAN delivered as a service instead of as an appliance, and network security delivered as a service instead of an appliance, but all together as one one solution. Go to the next slide. So delivering all these elements together allows for cost compression. It allows for ease of use and agility and scalability. It allows for easy add-on for new workers that are working remotely, for new branches. If you make an acquisition, it allows for all those things to be done all from one dashboard. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So we deliver this architecture using a distributed set of cloud nodes or points of presence, otherwise known as POPs. We have 70 of these, which is one of the largest independent networks of its kind, and all of the POPs are identical to each other. So if Steven Spielberg is working out of his office in Burbank, he expects all of his applications to be optimized and secured. As he goes home, with Cato, we allow executives to use a remote access tool that, again, optimizes and secures those transmissions for folks working from home. If he picks up and goes to Singapore on location, he just connects into the Singapore POP for Cato. And we allow for the same optimization and security to happen on those transmissions, whether it's at a Starbucks, at a branch, at a headquarters location. It shouldn't matter where the user is, what device they're on, or what kind of application they're trying to access, premise or cloud. Through Cato, we're able to get everyone off the internet and onto this Hyperloop backbone-based experience that also does the deep security segmentation for all flows all the time. Go to the next slide. So starting with the core architecture, we then what we call attach the users and application instances that allows us to render networking policies, security rule sets all at the same time in, if you like, a self-service model. So if you want to have full controls and have the keys to the administrative capabilities here, you're able to add new users, sync integrations with your single sign-on tools like Okta and Active Directory, and be able to have complete command and control over your entire environment, no matter where those users or applications are across the globe. Also, as we continue to innovate and add new features, it just becomes a part of this dashboard so that you can curate the marketing team's experience, the executive's experience. If you want to allow things like Facebook but limit the amount of throughput, you're able to create all those rule sets and maintain them in real time. The challenges that we're typically solving is moving away from MPLS and premise-based appliances, getting rid of premise-based firewalls. We're able to optimize remote access transmission, so solving for all the people complaining to the help desk, things like that. Those are the big use cases that we solve for. Performance-related issues, cloud migration. How do I harmonize my on-premise architectures with the cloud instances? Using Cato, we're able to bring them both together and be able to seamlessly allow you to move workloads and be able to shift things around, but keep eyes on everything all the time with strict policy controls. Go ahead, build this out, Sabrina. So starting with the core, we actually deliver all of our core networking and security capabilities to every customer. So if, as a customer, you already have premise-based firewalls that you want to use a little longer and ride those investments out, with Cato, we allow for that network optimization and our cloud security to complement those premise-based appliances if you want to continue having them. If you go end of life with those appliances and you want us to take over those full advanced security functions, we can add those additional advanced security layers onto the network architecture. So this allows for remote workers to tie in using a VPN replacement strategy on the bottom right here that's now being called SDP, or software-defined perimeter, providing really strict controls, granular application-level access for each user. Instead of granting them network-level access, we want to provide them application-level access and be able to clip the transmission in real time if something weird is happening, if their behavior while on the network starts violating certain rules. We're able to, again, we're not only optimizing but also securing all those transmissions at a flow level. We're able to connect those remote workers to branch assets if needed, data centers, cloud instances, all by connecting them all to Cato in that attachment strategy that we talked about. We're in the same Equinix switch type of facilities around the world that house all of the IaaS providers, the UCaaS vendors, so that we're in the same layer 2 switch fabric with those applications. So it provides for easy, simple packet handoffs that can stay encrypted depending on your rules for compliance and things of that nature. It provides agility and ease of use with the ability to solve for one problem at a time. So if you're just looking for SD-WAN, get rid of your MPLS, we can accommodate for just that one use case. If you want to tie in the remote workers too, we can do that. If you want to do everything, we have many customers that do everything with Cato. You can advance all the way to the last slide, because I know we're short on time.
Oh, thanks,
So
Mark.
we do have some additional
pull the music, right? The dance off kind of music. So, but appreciate
Indeed.
that. Mindful of time.
Indeed. So the last point here is that Cato is its own provider. We're not beholden to Cisco or Fortinet for licensing. There's no markups there. It's our own product, and we can rapidly innovate. So as a business, you like running your environment in a certain way, and if you see something that you'd like to have, and Cisco and Palo and other vendors just won't listen to you because they don't listen to customers as much as they used to, Cato actually listens. We're small and innovative, and we're able to reiterate our platform based on a unique customer's requirements, including opening new POPs. We've actually opened a new POP just for one customer because it's our product and we can put it where we want. But our R&D team is always working on requests for changes to see something slightly different in the dashboard. And this rapid innovation is the key to SASE's long-term success. The idea of everything being in one place, delivered as a convergent platform that's at cloud scale, allows for that rapid reiteration. So if a large enterprise customer wants something interesting, and that capability is applicable for you because you're in the same vertical market, you're able to get access to those things very quickly because of this innovation pace with a platform like Cato's.
Yeah, well said. And
thank you very much.
Yeah, man. The use cases there are plenty, which I love. That's why it's a very dynamic platform, as Mark was kind of alluding to. A lot of people go there for the SASE, but let's say stay for the remote access, and then you get into all your benefits and features and integrations. You had mentioned, AD and Okta and several others there. So customers are a lot of times bringing a lot of that to the table, and you're rounding out the platform instead of just going to a legacy firewall, which I love. And that cloud delivery model puts you closer to the applications. And I know you have a great use case with a pretty large unified communications out there too as well. So thanks, Mark. That was perfect. Now you're going to hear a little bit different version of a cloud delivered model. Obviously, CloudFlare, the name kind of says it, right? But Dan, when I got to know CloudFlare a while ago, I didn't know how senior you guys were in this world, right? Now you're kind of the head of go-to-market revenue and challenges and initiatives too as well. So you're introducing customers and potential customers to teams building CloudFlare's cutting edge technology. I want to hear a little bit more about that because I know you're getting into a little bit of that SASE model Mark had mentioned there too as well. And then, but you've spent a lot of your career in a political advocacy in DC, and you brought your passion for technology and customer success to CloudFlare. So when you've been working with customers for 5 years to see the growth of moving workloads to the cloud and being able to be at the literal backbone sometimes of DNS and internet, it's got to be pretty exciting to teach people a little bit about where CloudFlare has been, but also where they're going. So I'm looking forward to this one, Dan. So take over for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that intro. And just kind of kick it off, to kind of sum up, I think what you said about CloudFlare. Our mission sounds really lofty, and that is to make the internet better. And when I started at CloudFlare 5.5 years ago, what did that mean? What it meant was for anyone who wanted to connect a website or a public-facing web application or an API to the internet or to users, we would make that more performant, more available, and more secure. But what we were kind of working on underneath the hood at CloudFlare was, knowing that the internet was going to play a bigger role in companies' lives over time, right? The trend that we've seen here is that as companies kind of embrace digital transformation, as transactions go online, as user experiences go online, as customer engagements go online, the internet becomes the pivot point of where companies and customers are transacting. And CloudFlare is really well positioned and has been for quite some time to help out with that. Now, in lieu of that, kind of what's happened is, we've been pursuing a model of kind of the evolution of enterprise computing and networking for the entire 5 years and more that I've been here. Trying to help deliver that functionality closer to the user and more in a more secure fashion, than kind of the point solutions that Mark mentioned. And then all of a sudden, kind of Gartner said, okay, hey, there's this thing called SASE, which Mark kind of talked about, which I won't reiterate. And when we stepped back and we looked at it, we said, well, we're already doing a lot of that stuff. We have a lot of those features and capabilities in our dashboard already. We have a huge global network and things like that. So what we've really been doing is kind of educating our customers, educating new customers, educating partners on the power of Cloudflare's network and kind of why things in one platform works really, really well. I think if you go to the next slide, from a very kind of simple point of view, what I spend most of my time talking about and talking to is customers that have something that looks like something on the left. And COVID has obviously accelerated all of these concerns and considerations, by a lot. It's the easy way to say it. You had kind of companies where their corporate model, their corporate networking model was just literally breaking under kind of the evolution of things moving to the internet. So the whole idea of you have an office building and you can just kind of, everyone transacts there and you can just build a perimeter around that office building was going away. And then when everyone left the office during COVID, it really went away. And kind of the promise of SASE and where Cloudflare sits into this is that, again, as the internet becomes the place where people interact, you can't wrap firewalls around the internet. You can't wrap boxes around the internet. You need a provider that has the scale, the coverage, and the capabilities that make the internet more secure and more performant. And that's what Cloudflare does. So if you go to the next one, the way that we think about it is we're kind of on a journey. And Cloudflare has been a key kind of mover in this journey. But really the journey starts, you had kind of Gen 1, which, was your racking and stacking gear in central locations. It could be, office buildings, data centers, wherever it may be. It was really easy from a policy enforcement perspective. You kind of knew what you were doing and knew what the policies were. It was expensive. It was, low business agility. You had to send smart hands out to do this kind of stuff, and you're paying a latency penalty, right? So then Gen 2 comes along, and that's when you begin kind of virtualizing some of these things. You're getting an increase in business agility, right? People buy outcomes, they don't buy products. And really the outcome is you're getting that increased business agility. However, you're still paying that performance penalty. You're kind of, leaving your users and customers in a bad spot in terms of, having to choose, performance versus security. And we just don't think that choice should exist. And now we're at what we think of as Cloudflare kind of driving Gen 3, which is, delivering networking and zero trust functionality as close to the user and the branch as possible. So this is kind of giving you a continued maximum business agility and flexibility and the strongest security posture in addition to the best user experience as possible. And I also want to be, realistic too. This is an evolving space. When Bill talks about SASE and cutting edge technologies, there's a lot happening here. There's a lot of marketing jargon. There's a lot of terminology. There's a lot of things flying around. And I think it would be, unwise for us to kind of note that, hey, this is a nascent and evolving landscape, and customers are going to go on a variety of journeys through this. And I think as I get to the end, I'll talk about that and the different things that Cloudflare does. Our kind of superpowers, the way I think about it is that we're able to kind of put products on our network and use the flywheel of our network very quickly. So whether you're a developer, whether you're an enterprise, whether you're a mid-sized business, a small medium-sized business, whether you have pain points around developing applications, around VPN replace, around secure remote access, we have a combination of tools that can help with that. And if you go to the next slide, as I was just alluding to, our network is really what powers everything that we put on it. When I started at Cloudflare, this network was about 1/3 the size that it is today, and we have just been on a rapid pace of growth in terms of scaling this up to be one of the most, if not the most, interconnected anycast network on the globe. And again, we don't think about the products per se that we put on this network. We think about this network kind of being the product and the things that we deliver from it being the features. So we're in 200 cities across 100 countries. We have almost 70 terabits capacity through very enterprise grade SLAs. We're very close to the eyeballs. That's really important. Mark kind of mentioned why that is. Whether you're in San Jose or Djibouti, and I always pick on Djibouti because I think it's our most remote pop. We deliver that service very, very close to the eyeballs, and then we just have an unprecedented scale. And I want to talk about this for a minute because it kind of speaks to some of the core or kind of some of the history that Bill mentioned around Cloudflare. Cloudflare started primarily as an application services company. Meaning, again, we were delivering things like web application firewall, CDN, DDoS, API security, bot management. And that allowed us to get a lot of web-facing properties on us. And what we do with those web-facing properties is not only service them for what they buy from us, we also glean a tremendous amount of intelligence from those customers. So whether they be very small mom and pop shops all the way up to enterprises, we have very sophisticated technologies from a security perspective that are running in the back end that are constantly analyzing the network, not only from a security perspective, but from a routing perspective, so that if a telco in one region, has a bad day, we very easily and automatically route around that. Very often we will see certain types of attacks start in one industry and then begin to kind of form or mold into another industry. So we can say, hey, we're seeing this pattern. Go apply it. Be ready over here, essentially. And that scale, not only in the terms of locations, but in the terms of customers, just gives us a very unique viewpoint into kind of what the internet is doing. And again, I mentioned that's important because the internet is becoming the place where you transact. You can't wrap firewalls and things like that around the internet. You need a global intelligent network that can do this. If we go to the next slide and kind of zoom in on, really kind of the SASE stuff and kind of what we're driving out of our platform. Very simply, I think that there's a series of business drivers and a series of outcomes that customers are looking for. You've got, poor performance. You've got, a broadened attack surface, especially as COVID's, not spiked up, but especially as that's kind of come on the scene and kind of been such a driver in all of our lives for the last 2 years. You've got a high burden on IT teams, and then remote work was already difficult to support pre-COVID, and now it's more difficult to support, or became more difficult with COVID. And really the core outcomes that we're delivering with customers are, just less disruption and superior performance, significantly reducing your attack surface as a business, which, is, a board level conversation at this point in time. You have your IT teams spend less time onboarding and offboarding people, and you've got safe and performant remote work. Really the traditional approach is you would just stack each of these boxes or stack each of these services next to each other. You have someone who would manage them. They might have, different identity providers or one identity provider, different clients. So you're kind of running client bloat and things like that. And at its core, Cloudflare's goal is to just simplify this. We have a platform that merges all of these solutions together, brings them together into one management console, one control plane, one data plane, one client, that makes it easy for you or your partners or us to manage that on your behalf. And really the promise here, as I said, is, you're getting an outcome. You're not getting a product. And the outcomes, like I said, are, you're getting more business agility, more flexibility, stronger security posture, and better performance. And that's really the things that we see driving customers to this kind of posture. And then if I could just kind of click in and talk about some of the technologies really quick. Again, this is a very hot space. There's a lot happening. Zero Trust, CASB, DLP, all these kind of words flying around. One of the things that we do that's unique is, we build all of these products on our own compute platform that runs on our network, and that platform is called Workers. And I think that people often sidestep or like to kind of ignore the importance that edge computing or kind of serverless computing is going to play in the network that you choose over time, especially as things like 5G and kind of user expectations on the network grow. So it's not only like we're building these services in the POPs, and we're building them, on our own metals and things like that. It's that we're building them on, kind of cutting edge, compute technology as well on our edge that allows us to deliver them very quickly and very efficiently to the end user. So if you go to the last slide, I'll wrap up here. What is the journey with Cloudflare? What are people doing? Or how does it start? And really we see it start in 4 different buckets. Again, we're most known for our application services. We're a public company, that's kind of been the bread and butter of how we got to where we are, WAF, CDN, DDoS, and things like that. We have many customers still that start in that bucket. As customers evolve, whether they kind of start in the application services bucket and then grow, or whether they come in one area and then kind of spread across this, you also have the zero trust services, which we'll talk a lot about, and I suspect there will be a fair amount of questions about. You have the network services as well, so it could be WAN as a service. How do you do thinner branch office connectivity and all of those kind of use cases. And then again, I mentioned the developer services. We have the ability for you as a company to deploy code, configure that, scale it, and balance it without the need to go to an Amazon or kind of one of the hyperscalers. We really think of ourselves as being one of those hyperscalers over time. So when you kind of put these four things together, and they're 100% software defined, like Bill said, it's kind of in the name, CloudFlare. You get a single pane of glass to manage it from, single pass inspection, and robust visibility and logging. We've taken what has kind of become these patchwork virtualized network functions and kind of patchwork connectivity that may have given some users an increase in business agility. By putting all that together, we're now able to provide an increased level of agility and flexibility, and strengthening of the security posture while improving performance considerably. So that's a little bit about Cloudflare, what we do, our network, and kind of how we see the market. So I'm excited to get to the discussion. I hope I didn't go over my time, and looking forward to hearing from the other folks as well. So thank you very much.
No, that was all good, and I'm kind of stealing a couple of your thunders, your lines. It's what I do a lot of times, right? People are buying outcomes, not products. You guys are leading the way in terms of openness on the internet. And I'll always give your leadership a lot of credit that when it's a Cloudflare issue, you guys are at, always at the top of mind in the public's eye, because you guys see so much of the traffic going to the public clouds and all these other clouds that a lot of times we hear it from you that a cloud is down or a network is down or Cloudflare is down, and here's the way we're remediating it. But you guys are very vocal and out there for the betterment of the internet, not necessarily the betterment of Cloudflare, right? So always give you and the leadership a lot of credit on that. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Yep. And then moving on, so we had talked a lot about Cato and Cloudflare, a little bit different from each, but they really focused in on something called SASE, that edge model, enabling the users, enabling one platform almost to rule them all, if you will. Now we're going to take a little bit different approach. eSentire, Mike Shih, basically eSentire was born and bred in more of the MDR space, which is manage, detect, and respond. So when you want those cybersecurity experts watching the house, wherever the house might be, right? Globally, in the cloud, on-prem, your network, everything, right? But I want somebody to go and remediate things. I want to know that if one of my users click on something that they shouldn't have on a website, I don't have time to do that. Do I know my expert out there is able to do that in real time and then will alert me, right? That is exactly what eSentire does and more, right? So Mike, sorry, I probably didn't introduce you as well as I probably should have, right? But you're bringing 20 years of technology and security experience here. You're focused on the network, the endpoint, really cloud security and the holistic approach to it. You even have a security maturity program too that I've gotten you guys engaged with customers. So, your goal really is to make sure the lowest cost channel does not become the most expensive. And talk to us a little bit about ransomware and malware as you're going through that, because those are hot topics in the industry. So, Mike, take us through a little bit of intro to eSentire.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Bill. I appreciate it. Name is Mike Shih. Hopefully the audio is okay. Let me know if it's not. I can dial in.
No, you're good.
Yeah, been doing this for a while for eSentire, about 4 years, and we really are the authority in managed detection and response. We started the space back in 2001 when our founder, Eldon Spickeroff, deployed network sensors to hedge fund companies in Manhattan. And that's where we got our start, really monitoring their networks, because it does full packet capture on the network. It sees every port, every protocol, everything that's happening on the network. And it was a one-time engagement, but those hedge fund customers really got a lot of value from that and wanted us to keep those network sensors in place. And that was the beginning of managed detection and response. And back then it was single telemetry. And what we found over the years is multi-telemetry matters. You need to get telemetry from multiple infrastructures, whether it's network, your endpoints, logging data, cloud. You have to pull it all together to really see what's happening. So that's where our company started in 2001. You know, we are a service company, and our main goal, you know, we talked about business outcomes, and I'm going to steal the line again. You know, really our goal is to make sure you do not have a business impacting event. We focus on small and mid-sized companies. We also support enterprise. We augment their security infrastructure. But you know, the small and mid-sized companies don't have the resources or talent to protect their infrastructure. So we've provided a service, and our service is to provide the 24/7, 365, really MDR, managed detection and response. And that's the key differentiator, that embedded real-time incident response. So that's the service that we provide. A couple stats about our service, how to measure, is it a good service, a bad service? One of them is customer retention. We have a 97% customer retention, which is unheard of in the security space, managed security space. And we have a net promoter score of 73. And a net promoter score is how likely would a customer refer you to a prospect. And a 73 is not like back in high school. A 73 is world class, up there with USAA, Microsoft, and the like. So we have 2 security operations centers, one in Cork, Ireland, and one in Waterloo, Ontario, North America. They're both 24/7, 365, and that's where our threat hunters are based. And you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, I like this line. Ultimately, business protection comes down to the speed at which you can hunt and contain an attack. And that's really the key. And you can build this whole thing out in the center. We'll build it perfect. Yeah, and the speed is, we call it micro incident response, responding in seconds and minutes versus hours and days. Just like sometimes you get an incident response retainer, it can take hours or days to deploy. And by that time, it is too late. So, we're finding organizations, they're facing many challenges doing business in the connected world today. As you know, the pandemic, as mentioned earlier, has sped up the digital transformation. I hear prospects saying all the time, I can't find the resources. We invested in technology we don't even know how to use. We don't have the 24/7 security coverage. We're moving to the cloud, but we don't know how to secure ourselves in the cloud. And digital transformation, I look at it as really transforming everything to zeros and ones and delivering it over the lowest cost channel, i.e. the internet. And like Bill said, you don't want to make that the most expensive channel by having a business impacting event. There's also another term, it's kind of a evolutionary term called the Red Queen effect. And what this basically states is that complex ecosystems must evolve or they will die. That's kind of sobering. So, and really what it means is, people try to purchase products and point solutions, and you're constantly trying to keep them up to date. And by us offering a service, it's really future proofing it. So you don't have to worry about that Red Queen effect. So, with digital transformation, the inability to get talent, the pressure to evolve or die, what else could go wrong? How about a tsunami of data? And we can go to the next slide. So, I look at cybersecurity as a massive data analysis problem. So now we're trying to confront and manage this massive data analysis problem. What do we do with all the data? How do we make it actionable? Having cloud, on-premise, hybrid environments has increased the noise that our customers need to sort through. And that's really a challenge. How to make sense of it, how to respond to it. It's also increased the attack surface and the burden on all organizations, especially small and mid-sized companies, like I mentioned, who don't have the funding or the resources required to protect them. So you not only need full spectrum visibility to what's happening in the customer's environment, but you need to be able to make sense of the data. And you're probably asking, Mike, how the heck do we do that? And we can go to the next slide. So to solve this big data problem, you really need to start with pulling in the relevant security data sources. And you can see to the far left, those relevant security data sources, which are our products that feed into our service, our network, endpoint, log, and cloud. And that's really, that truly is your tsunami of data. Now, what do you do with that tsunami in data? Well, you need to leverage a service that provides a technology platform and security experts that filter through the noise. So in our case, you may have heard of, an offshoot of MDR is XDR, Extended Detection and Response. And basically what that means is you're taking the data, you're pulling it in. It's kind of like SOAR, Security Orchestration and Automated Response, same concept. We have our Atlas pipeline. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull all that telemetry in. We're going to leverage automated analysis, machine learning, aggregation, correlation to drive rapid response to security threats. You can see up top it says machine, and then it goes there, it goes to the left to the human piece. It's a combination of that. We hear a lot of talk about AI and machine learning, but the biggest advantage in the security market today are the people who are trained in cyber threat hunting. And our threat hunters also apply AI, and that's abstract thinking and intuition. That's a key differentiator to our MDR service. And we call this human expertise at machine scale. So once it's funneled down, think of a big funnel, the big data comes in, we normalize it, we apply our threat intelligence, AI, machine learning. Eventually it comes to our threat hunters, and that's all they do. And as it comes in, they can make the determination how to respond to the threat. And you can go to the next slide. Okay, so I want to, educate everyone on the phone so you have a better understanding of MDR, managed security, and how to have an intelligent conversation about it. To the right side are 4 key criteria in managed detection and response or security in general. The top one is visibility. Now, if you're looking at providers, what visibility do they have to your infrastructure? Can they see on-premise? Can they see in the cloud? Can they see endpoints, remote workers? What level of visibility do they have to your infrastructure? And to the right, what detection capabilities do they have? Is it strictly signature-based threats? Can they spot anomalous, unusual activity, a disturbance in the force? Do they do proactive threat hunting? And on the bottom is signal fidelity. We talked about telemetry. What is the quality of the telemetry signal? Something like full packet capture, it has very high value and fidelity. You can look at all the packets, you can crack them open, see what makes them tick, see if it has a binary, pull it out, detonate in a sandbox, do an analysis on it. If it's 0-day, update your entire network and your customer base. That's a lot of value. Logging, for example, has some good data, but typically it's history, it's rear view mirror. It's great combined with other telemetry, but on its own, not so much. And the final component, arguably the most important, is response. What response capability does the provider give you? Is it up to the customer to respond to the threat? Is it going to be alert forwarding and guidance? Or is it embedded real-time incident response like eSentire, and then notifying the customer, this is what we saw, this is what we did, this is what we need you to do. And on the top left, you'll see our friend, the SIM, Security Incident Event Management. Again, it's a great tool when combined with multiple telemetry. As a standalone, you can see it doesn't score very highly in those 4 criteria. And then to the right, EDR, Endpoint Detection and Response. Could be Carbon Black, CrowdStrike, Defender Endpoint. That single telemetry, great value, but it needs to be combined. And the little r means limited, no response, or the response is up to the client. If you purchase CrowdStrike, the tool, you're responsible for response. To the right, MDR with multi-telemetry, so we're getting better. We're pulling in maybe logging, perhaps endpoint, There's the little r. So again, that means, who's responsible for response? And that's a question to ask your providers. And to the right is eSentire MDR with the big R, means there's embedded real-time incident response. Whether there's 1 incident or 100 during your contract term, we're going to respond to the threat, eliminate it, and then work with you on any remaining things. And we'll finish up with this last slide.
Thanks, Mike. The last slide, bring it to a close for us because we have limited time for Ntirety here.
Absolutely. So here you see basically our portfolio of telemetry sources. They're all sold a la carte, depending on the customer's infrastructure. We want that visibility. The more telemetry we have, we can paint the picture or create the puzzle and understand what the adversary is doing. So on the left is our network looking at north-south traffic. It has embedded incident response. We can do a TCP reset, disrupt traffic, geo-blocking, embedded response capabilities. Endpoint, 2 flavors, next-gen AV, and then EDR, endpoint detection and response, is our threat hunting tool. We support Microsoft Defender, CrowdStrike, Carbon Black. In the middle is logging, getting that software as a service telemetry, leveraging Sumo Logic. Think of it as a SIM in a way. And then from a cloud perspective, we can monitor your workloads, the big 3, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, leveraging Palo Alto Prisma, and finally, Tenable.io for a managed vulnerability service. And this is how we pull it in and provide our 24/7, 365 threat hunting service. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Mike. I'm glad you have this on there because obviously you have a proprietary technology, but you also integrate with some of the largest ones out there. And like you said, logs and a few other ways you can gather data and really pull it in and react in real time. That's huge in this day and age. And then our final presenter, Alex, from Ntirety, she's been 10 years in the performance in the tech space, so not new here. Came to Ntirety with a background in architecting more the hybrid cloud, actually very similar to my background, and we've gotten into the cybersecurity world because of, honestly, necessity. Our customers are demanding it. We're just curious. So happy to see her on the call here. Alex, kind of quickly introduce us to Ntirety.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Bill. Next slide. Perfect. We can go to the next one. I'll try to get through this, guys, for you quickly. So I know that there's probably lots of questions that people have, so I'll try to get through it quick. So Ntirety has been in business for about 22 years now. Legacy, we were hosting and HostAway, and hosting and HostAway merged together. And then what they noticed was that a lot of the customers were really started looking at public cloud platforms. And so to stay relevant, we acquired a smaller organization called Ntirety that really had a focus in managed cloud operations to support customers with their public cloud services. And then we were acquired by Prudential, so we're actually a division of. And when Prudential came in, they said, you guys need to be fully compliant for all of the solutions that you guys are delivering. So we went out, we got a guidance, risk, and compliance tool, and we hired some compliance experts. And what we found is that compliance and security go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And so what we did was we built out 3 SOCs across the country in Denver, Newark, and Louisville. And we hired an entire security team to lead that charge. And once we became fully secure and compliant, like Bill had mentioned, we had a lot of customers with a need and demand for security and compliance services. So we decided that we had done such a good job of it that we would deliver it to customers like yourselves. We have over 2,500 enterprise customers, but we service over 80,000 SMB customers. We have right now, currently, we are looking at about 20 billion logs per month, and that number should more than double over the next 2 months with our growth rate right now. We have over 500 employees currently, and the majority of those employees are SOC team and technical resources that are supporting our customers like yourselves. Next slide. So what really makes Ntirety different is that we're the industry's only full stack solution. And when I say industry's only, we're the only vendor out there that actually provides the services ourselves from top to bottom. And we do all of it under the elements of security and compliance. It's really the umbrella and the focus that we have as we deliver all of our services. And we can do that for you guys as a monthly managed service, but we also do tons of consulting engagements that are either on demand or project based. In the security realm, we do vCISO engagements, so we can come in and look at your environment. We can help you build out security maturation frameworks depending upon the compliances that you guys are following. We deliver full managed security solutions, so we have the SIEM, we do XDR, we do SOC services. And then we do full DevOps, so we can support you in the architecture of not only your infrastructure, but your databases for SQL, MySQL, and Oracle. And then we'll do full database management. And we can do that either as a managed service, or we can come in and help you guys clean that up on a project base or on demand. We do recovery services. And because we are security, we not only look at it from a backup and disaster recovery perspective, but we can also support you guys for high availability with VDI. We also offer Monitoring Insights. Monitoring Insights is an asset management platform. I know all of you guys are familiar with SolarWinds Orion and the breach that happened in December. Our product and service actually displaces what they do, and it's very different because we insert humans into every managed service that we deliver. So you actually have the support from individuals, and you have the visibility from a single platform of your infrastructures, whether they be in the public cloud, private cloud, or on-premise. And then we do full cloud operations. We can support you managing VMs on-premise. We can support the management of your private cloud and AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud platforms. And we also deliver our own private infrastructure as a service for you. Next slide. So what's different about how Ntirety really approaches security is that we leverage a compliant security framework. And in order to be compliant and secure at the same time, you have to look at multiple elements of security. So the protection aspect is truly what we've talked about today here, right? A lot of the managed security, I know the word point solution has come up a lot. So it's really that vulnerability identification and scanning, firewall services, SOC, SIEM, those types of services are those elements within the protection. But what's truly important and often gets missed is the recovery aspects of it. So disaster and recovery as a service, backup, and then having that high availability in your environment through virtual desktop. Another thing that we're looking at a lot is cyber liability insurance coverage. So it's not just the insurance itself, but making sure that you qualify that if something happens, that your insurance pays out on that instance. And then the other piece of it is assurance. And that's really the business challenges within your organization, making sure that you have the protocols and the cultures in place in order to continue to progress and keep the maturation rate of your security posture going. So looking at the compliances that you guys have, understanding the architecture, making sure that your logs are properly cared for and that you have eyes on it and visibility into your environment. One of the things that we do for our customers is we do something called guidance level agreements. So we're not only going to be contracting to you for SLAs for uptime and response, but we're going to actually be working with you to provide 5 actionable recommendations every quarter around availability, performance, security, and cost for your environment. Next slide. So one of the unique things that we do is the security maturation process, and we actually leverage NIST framework in order to develop this. And so we go into customers and we look at the different levels of NIST framework, so level 1 through 5, and we base it on what industry are you in and what is the desired outcomes for those industries. So if you're in finance or healthcare, you're going to be more tightly bound by maybe HIPAA or high trust. And so you're going to be wanting to be at a level 4 or level 5. But if you're in a retail space, you're more focused on PCI, which is oftentimes like POS systems and those types of things. So you're going to be at a level 2 or a level 3. We prefer if you're at a level 3, but we do find some customers prefer to be at a level 2. And then when we're going into the manufacturing space, it depends on what you're manufacturing. If you're manufacturing shoes, level 3 might be great for you. But if you're in aerospace and you're working with the DoD and you're trying to achieve CMMC compliance, we might need to take you up to that level 5. Next slide. So the way that we really decide what level you're at is based on the RTO and RPO. What is your response time? How long does it take you to detect, and how long is it going to take you to recover? And the way that we understand how to achieve those RTOs and RPOs is by looking at the protection, recovery, and assurance elements of the services that you might currently be receiving. So sometimes we have at a level 1, there's point solutions, they've got something in place, but they don't necessarily have visibility into what that is, and that's huge. It's a really important piece. And then level 2, we're going up, and that's generally where we find most of our customers. But as we get further up the security maturation process, we're looking at things like real-time monitoring, not just being SOC 24/7 eyes on glass, looking at your logs, but actually the understanding of what the health of your current environment is so that you have the ability to recover. Again, like I said, high availability, dual environments, making sure that all of your databases are assessed, designed properly and secure, and then making sure that all of your logs and your certifications are set in place. So this I love because you guys are able to just look at this right now, and you can kind of get an idea of where you guys might sit within a security maturation aspect. Next slide. And that's all I have, so we can get to questions.
Oh, thanks, Alex. And Julie, if you're still out there, and apologize everybody for going a little bit long. Obviously, catching 4 strategic vendors and honestly, the capabilities that they do is tough to do in an hour. So I appreciate everybody being breath and being able to accomplish. So Julie, did you have any Q&A out there for us? Yep.
Yeah, again, I just want to say thanks so much to all of our presenters. I know we ran a little bit long, but I think this is information well worth the discussion. So thank you so much to all 4 of our presenters. We did have some questions come in, and we got some questions yesterday as well, Bill, that I think bear repeating, are worth discussing today, particularly with this panel of experts. And so what I thought I would do is read through the questions that have come in during our presentation, as well as a couple that I think are really valuable from yesterday. And I'm going to lob them to you, Bill, and I think you'll be in a great position to kind of send these out to our panel based on their specific areas of expertise.
Oh, perfect.
One of the new questions that came in today is, in what ways can I leverage security to meet the compliances that my company is trying to adhere to?
Yeah, you can really generally, as you heard from Alex and even as eSentire, we're going to be driven by developing a NIST, a cybersecurity framework, or even a maturation, and making sure that you're going to drive that to the compliance. So Alex, if you have any tidbits, because you guys are really touting your almost compliance as a service, if you will, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things that we can do is we can come in and we can actually assess where you guys stand from a compliance standpoint and help you mature that, whether that's a vCISO engagement or an ongoing managed service. But what I think is really important about the security maturation model is you can be compliant, and depending on what type of compliance you're trying to achieve, you might be at a different security maturation level. So really understanding how those go hand in hand and where you actually need to be on that maturation standpoint to be compliant is really important.
So Alex, somebody just said on that note, how do I understand what the maturity of my company's security posture is?
Absolutely. So we can actually come in and we can do, it's important for you guys to be looking at assessing the environment. I'm able to share with you guys the that framework so that you guys can maybe do like a self-assessment, just a quick look at it. But the big and important thing is to be making sure that you're getting those assessments, having third parties come in and take a peek at what your environment looks like and where you guys are standing, and then getting an idea of where you want to sit on that maturity, on those maturity levels, so that you can build out your idea in your head what you need to acquire in order to get further down that maturation process.
Perfect. Thanks, Alex. Okay, Bill, this is a question that came in yesterday, and I think it's a good one. It bears repeating. What is the first thing we should do if we suspect a cyber attack?
I can hand that over to eSentire, and that is a great one that honestly you can email Instant Info Systems, myself. We have several vendors behind us that have incident response, just email addresses, right? They'll jump on it. Now, that is not the best way to do it, right? You want to have somebody of ilk that understands, hopefully, your network, your how to get in there and understand your architecture. That is literally what eSentire can do, and they can have an incident response and a plan going for you. So, Mike, if you're still out there, I don't know if I nailed it or wanted to chat a little bit more on that.
No, I think you're spot on. I mean, the key is to be prepared ahead of time, right? Have an incident response plan. Practice those tabletop exercise like you have in breach, at least twice a year. Being prepared. What do you do if there's an incident? And that's really the name of the game. After post-breach response, you want a trusted partner you can reach out to, and those are the people on the call here. We have an incident response arm. If you have been breached, you don't have our service, we can help you to deal with it, and then move with a plan going forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Bill, this one again, yesterday we had, I think, a large number of folks on the call yesterday, and I'm seeing some of them return today. Organizations that don't have large security teams, where we've got senior executives who are really trying to get their arms around their security strategy for their organization. So someone yesterday asked, what would be a sign that we may not be as protected as we thought we were? Or what should I ask my team to see if we have any security gaps? Very high level discussion point.
Yeah, I can bring in, and Mark, if you're still out there from Cato, I know you've seen this for many years, right? For me, it literally is, I've never seen any customer that is fully protected. It just doesn't exist. You have some gaps. Questions out there is, what can your team handle? What are the capabilities? What are those, products where you're going from a business? I mean, it's a full discussion. But yeah, Mark, I'd like to hear your purview too as well.
It's all about, Bill, you hit it on the head. It's about discovering where the current state, the current skill sets that are in house, and align that to what compliance requirements there are, and the desired security posture. In the end, no one's safe. Your customers need you to have a high defense array to keep them safe as well. There's a lot of those types of breaches that have been happening where they use a third party to get in. I think with JP Morgan Chase, they a nonprofit third party for JP Morgan Chase hosted an event and had a web page that had a vulnerability, and the hackers used that web page to get in through to JP Morgan Chase's core network. So these hacks are getting really sophisticated. It's important just to have your defenses up. So the more you can get to a security posture of ever-present, omnipresent, where there's a platform looking at all flows, that's the ideal state. And whether that's done through a standalone MDR solution, which has been discussed today, or if it's through a core networking security optimization SASE platform like Cato's, those are the steps that we need to get to. But it is important to identify the sort of where you are, before we craft a path to where you'd like to go.
Thanks, Mark. Bill, you said at the beginning of this question, you've never seen an organization that is fully protected, and I think that's pretty typical. Somebody yesterday asked, what are the most vulnerable areas within an organization? Are there specific areas, maybe the employees themselves, or different functions within an organization that tend to be more vulnerable than others.
Yeah, and I'd like to, Dan at CloudFlare, obviously your purview here. Everybody knows most of it comes through either end users clicking on something, but and it's not necessarily where they're coming in at. We know they're going to come in. It's something that, Dan, you had talked about, which is getting toward a zero trust model, which end users, it really comes down to trust but verify. That kind of model is, even if somebody clicks on a link or a document that they shouldn't have, can I isolate them and keep them from getting to, Active Directory or applications in the cloud and just having a much worse problem. But, if you have a little bit of discussion on there, I like the way you were starting to position zero trust.
Yeah, I've seen kind of an interesting series of use cases and kind of evolution here in the last year and a half. Interestingly enough, I think there's kind of your tried and true methods, like you said, of people clicking stuff. And we'll talk about that in a second. We've also kind of seen some, what I would call kind of dumber tactics come back to life in the last, 2 years, last year and a half, especially since COVID. Like a big one for us is just a huge uptick on the number of corporate networks that are getting DDoSed. Yeah, so we work with a lot of large, kind of enterprise IT shops that, have, Equinix locations or even on-prem data centers, and, they never really thought to put a solution in front of them, because they don't have a lot of public-facing applications. It's very limited stuff that's out to the public, and all of a sudden in the last year, there's been this wave of DDoS attacks against network infrastructure. So I just kind of call that out as one, because there's kind of all these different areas that seem to have kind of come back to life in the last year, or last year plus, I should say. I think when you think about, Bill, what you were saying and kind of, what are ripe areas for targeting, or kind of how do you help your employees be safer? Because I think one of the things that ends up happening is a lot of the way this stuff gets framed is you're trying to punish the employee. And the reality is I'll admit it, I've clicked on a phishing email before. Is how do you kind of help them operate, better? And what we really try to do with our solutions, and what we really try to coach customers on, is how do you get to the posture that you described, Bill, which is, trust but verify at the most granular level possible. So if you just think about an application, what are your top 10 most important applications? Okay, it's an ERP application. Okay, we host Jira here. Hey, we do something over here. Can we chart out the flows in and out of that? And then usually with CloudFlare, honestly, another provider, the way the solutions are in the market is you can get pretty close to, trust but verify for almost everything that's coming in and out of that. But it's really kind of matching, your user flows with, technologies that help them do their job better and safer, and just kind of being thoughtful about how you introduce the technologies. The other thing I would say kind of along that line is you're seeing a lot of cool kind of innovation in this space. Gartner, when they kind of said SASE, right, they kind of threw everything at the wall. They're like, everything that an ed provider does, boom, is SASE. Okay. I think, Bill, kind of what you said about segmentation and things like that, a really interesting space for folks to watch on the phone, and CloudFlare has a technology here as well, is browser isolation. So this idea of, hey, we can just take a user's browser and just run it off-prem, in someone else's cloud, a la CloudFlare's cloud or another provider. And that way, anything that user is doing in the browser actually never touches our corporate infrastructure. Now, this is a newer technology. It's not something that people are kind of waking up and going to sleep thinking about right now, but I think it kind of speaks to the extent of, how companies will look to really offload and eliminate threats while also maintaining their employee experience and helping their employees do their jobs in an efficient way. So I hope that's helped. I hope that's colorful.
It is, and you had mentioned. Yeah. You had mentioned SASE, and like you said, a lot of things, what Gardner said, throw it against the wall, all the network security, and the last one on that slide was RBI, right? And when I first looked at it, I'm like, are we playing baseball? Runs batted in? No. Remote browser, right? And it's so key that those little things like that can help maintain a secure user adoption, right? Just little things like that you might not have ever thought, and you're also not going to get that from a product, you're going to get it from a service provider or service delivery platform like yourself.
Exactly. And it speaks to kind of the coolness of the space from my perspective. There's a lot happening. It's I think partners like yourself, Bill, are well positioned because there's a lot of work to do and trying to help people figure out kind of what's going on and all the different pieces that are moving. So it's a fun time.
Good times. Julie, do we have a couple more? I know we're running long. I think Mark had to drop, but we might have a few more people.
Well, I'm looking at the time. We are now 15 minutes over our hour, and I think we've covered off on most of the questions that have come in. There are a few more that we probably won't have time to get to, but again, as we said from the beginning, if there is a question you've asked and we didn't have a chance to answer it, we will certainly reach out to you individually and make sure you get the information that you're looking for. So I wanted to just wrap up, thank our audience for hanging in there with us today with some entertainment at the beginning and running a little bit long at the end, but hopefully this was well worth your time. I'm looking at the list and we've got everybody with us still. So thanks for staying with us. We do appreciate it. And then I want to thank all of our presenters today. Just such a brain trust of folks who took time out of their day to join us and provide us with these presentations. So Mark at Cato, Dan at CloudFlare, Mike at eSentire, and Alex at Ntirety. Thank you so much for your time and expertise today. And of course, Bill, for 2 days of amazing presentations and moderation. So it was really great to have your insight and your leadership on these last 2 webinars. So with that, I want to leave you with our offer for a free security assessment. If you are trying to get your arms around a sound security strategy for your organization or need some assistance in understanding where your gaps and vulnerabilities might be, we would be happy to talk to you about that. And really the outcome of this security assessment will be bringing in solution providers like the folks that you met today on our call who have very specific expertise in key areas and really align you with the resources, solutions, and services that are going to best solve your greatest security challenges. So please reach out to us. You can see our email address there, info@instantinfo.com, or give us a call at the number on your screen, and we would love to talk to you and see how we can help you with your overall security strategy. So with that, I will say goodbye, and again, thanks to everybody. Thanks to Sabrina on the back end for running our slides today. Appreciate that so much, and I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.